Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hashmi, I'm baffled. You've now said this was unacceptable 5 times. This is more than unacceptable. This is, in my opinion, is criminal. I looked up the definition of fraud, just the criminal definition of fraud, make sure I'm still there on that. It's a deliberate scheme to obtain financial or other gain by using false statements, misrepresentations, or concealment. To me, that's the classic elements of fraud. That's fraud. That's criminality. Somebody should be held accountable like that. Now, I want to ask about 18F. Tell me what 18F was, please.
Yes, Congressman, thank you. 18F is a division within the Technology Transformation Service. The core issue that the 18F tries to solve for is the need to bring in modern technology talent to help agencies.
Where'd they come from? Where'd these guys and gals, this group of 18F, where'd they come from to get into the TTS division and start working on this?
Sir, we recruit personnel within 18F from all the different sources that any agency recruits for, private sector.
And they were the group that were working on Login.Gov. They're the ones that said we're going to make this comply with the EAL2, right?
With respect, Congressman, 18F is a separate division from Login.Gov. The two divisions.
But they had a contract. They were working with Login.Gov. Is that not true? They're a quasi-governmental institution. They're not a government entity. They're a quasi-government entity. Is that not right?
With respect, Congressman, they are a government entity.
Okay, so they're all in the government.
Yes, sir.
Okay, they were the ones working on Login.Gov. They're the ones that were trying to get contracts, et cetera, and they're the ones that made the claims that they were going to make this EAL2 compliant. Isn't that not true?
Again, with respect, Congressman, they're a different division from Login.Gov. They're not related.
You tell me that they had nothing to do with getting to EAL2. Is that what you're telling me?
Congressman, yes, the Login.Gov team is responsible for that compliance and misrepresentation.
And so 18F had nothing to do with it?
Sir, in this particular instance, 18F is a separate...
So who was it that was making the misrepresentation saying that we are EAL2 compliant? As let's see, I'm looking at the timeline, November 2019. That's when GSA started billing customers for Login.Gov EAL2 compliance.
As is outlined in the IG's report, yes, this misrepresentation does go back several years.
Who is it? I said who. I know it goes back. I've read the report. Who was it that was making the representations beginning in November 2019 when you're soliciting contracts and you're not just soliciting, you're billing customers fraudulently for services that you cannot render? Who was doing that?
Sir, as I've mentioned in my testimony, several folks within the Login.Gov team were identified. Like I said, sir, several folks who are no longer with the agency.
Have they been referred for prosecution?
So
deliberate fraud, criminal fraud requires a deliberate act, and you got $10 million that came in. That was I think the IG's report. $10 million from clients. That seems deliberate. There was consideration exchanged, and somebody deliberately misrepresented things. And then they submitted requests for an additional $187 million. Did they receive anything prior to that from the same organizations that they're TMF, from the TMF? They wanted 187 Technology Modernization Fund. Did they anything prior to 2021?
Not to my knowledge, Congressman, no.
I'll ask the IJ, Ms. Ochoa, did they receive anything other than that $10 million from clients? I thought you said they received additional funds.
Our report speaks to the $187 million they received from the Technology Modernization Fund.
So when I read the report, it said that in September 2021, that's when they ultimately received $187 million because they could comply, and that's on page 18 of your report. That's because they were in compliance. They claimed that they were in compliance with the EAL2. Is that right?
They did, yes.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, there's so much more that I would like to ask, and I'm out of time. But I mean, I've asked who was fired. They won't tell me.
Who was fired?
Yeah, who was fired? I've asked if they and they said they haven't made referrals criminally. This is a criminal fraud. I want to know where the money is, when we're going to get it back, and I want to know who is being held accountable, Mr.